I was traveling through the dense forests of Massachusetts when the story first began. These were the same forests where the Wampanoag people had lived for centuries. I had come there to learn about an old legend, a strange creature that appeared often in local folklore. Evening was beginning to fall. The trees were so thick that the last rays of sunlight barely reached the forest floor. I was walking along a long, narrow trail where I felt something strange for the first time. It felt like I was being watched. I stopped. The forest was quiet except for a distant bird calling somewhere in the trees. I looked around carefully, but I couldn't see anything. Then suddenly I heard a small movement in the bushes to my right. At first I thought it might be a rabbit or a deer, but when I focused on the trees, I saw something unusual. A small shadow moving quickly between the trunks. For a moment I wondered if it was a child, but no one should have been deep in this part of the forest. The shadow stopped briefly, then it disappeared behind a tree. I slowly stepped toward the spot where I had seen it. The forest had grown strangely silent. And that's when I remembered something a local had told me earlier that day. He said that in these forests there was a small creature known in the old stories. Small in size, but clever and dangerous. They called it a Pukwudgie. And according to the stories, if you ever felt like something in the woods was watching you, there was a chance that something actually was. I stood there for a moment. The forest had become so quiet that I could hear my own breathing. I told myself it was probably just my imagination, but then I heard the sound again. This time it came from my left. A soft rustling in the bushes, like something small moving quickly through the undergrowth. I turned immediately, but when I looked, there was nothing there. Just trees and shadows. I slowly started walking again, but now I could clearly feel that I wasn't alone. Sometimes a sound came from the right, then from the left. It felt as if something small was circling around me in the forest. A few steps ahead, I noticed a fallen tree lying across the path. As I approached it, I suddenly saw a small figure sitting on the trunk. It was tiny, maybe 2 or 3 feet tall. Its body looked almost human, but its head seemed slightly larger than normal. For a few seconds it simply watched me, then suddenly it jumped down from the log and disappeared into the darkness. My heart started racing. I suddenly remembered something a local man had told me earlier that day. He had said, sometimes the Pukwudgie like to play games with travelers. I had asked him, games? He hadn't smiled. He had only said one thing. Sometimes they make you lose your way. I looked around. The forest looked the same way in every direction, and that's when I realized something unsettling. I couldn't remember which direction I had come from. Now the forest felt truly strange. I tried to retrace my steps, but every direction looked the same. Trees, shadows, and darkness. I was certain I had come down that trail, but when I walked a few steps forward, the narrow path I had been following was gone. Then I heard the sound again. This time it almost sounded like a quiet laugh. I turned quickly. A short distance away, between the trees, the small figure was standing again. I couldn't see its face clearly, but it was definitely very small, barely 2 or 3 feet tall. It stood there silently, watching me. Then it slowly tilted its head, almost like it was inviting me to follow. A second later, it turned and ran deeper into the forest. For a moment, I thought about following it, but suddenly I remembered the warning the locals had given me earlier. If a Pukwudgie ever tries to guide you through the woods, don't follow it. So I stayed there where I was. A few moments later, the small shadow disappeared between the trees, and the forest became completely silent again. I took a deep breath and slowly started walking in the opposite direction. After some time, I finally found the narrow trail again and made my way out of the woods. But even now, Whenever I think about those forests in Massachusetts, I remember that small shadow because the old stories of the Wampanoag always say one thing about the Pukwudgie. They don't always harm people, but they do like to play games, and sometimes those games can be very dangerous.